Okay, Colin, so just to start off,
Yeah.
you said everything I have ever done is a selfie.
I know,
So-
it's a bit silly, but it was actually my name at school between the age of 8 and sort of 12 or 13. And I was always Selfie, you know, in the football team. It was just Selfie, Selfie, pass it, and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's a bit silly and late in the day, but I thought, I think I said it to Christine, and she said, I'm having it in the catalogue. So I partly wished I hadn't said it, but who cares? Shall I just read? This is to do with glances, and I do, in literature, there must be sort of 30 or 50 ways of seeing. You know, you can look angrily, you can look passively, you can look dismissively or interestedly or happy or sad. And in art, it's almost like the seeing thing is just like limited to one word virtually. And I did partly wonder what it would be like if somebody recatalogued, like the Victoria and Albert Museum had to recatalogue their whole ethnology department or something, or the fossil department, because somehow they'd got it wrong. But wouldn't it be nice if you got sort of like,
According to mood.
yeah, Rembrandt's sort of peeping Tom, sort of like etching of a woman peeing, or Marc Chagall looking crazy, or just all the different ways that you can verbalise ways of seeing. Wouldn't it be nice if you saw an exhibition which was sort of Picasso's sad blue period, or and this is a little bit like related to that, but it just says the Baroque composer Orlando Gibbons, the choirmaster of Covent Garden Church, when on his daily way to work, heard the street songs of London's barker vendors selling their wares. He wrote a piece which collaged those, in essence, street vendors' musical adverts, like a form of musical trompe-l'oeil or street rap collage. I was smitten by this Orlando Gibbons concept. This, as one of my collages in the collection of the Tate, the childhood of Orlando Gibbons, shows, has been a long-held influence to do the same, but visually. Also, the close to the inner heartbeat intimacies revealed in Pepys's diaries, the minutiae with the social censorship conventions removed, the diary concept, secrets and close moments, i.e. the humanity and the power of the small, clues, life, as opposed to the authoritarian overlord, vacuous classicisms imposed boringly onto us, the found postcards from previous generations' mysteries, the shy subjective daring to claim a place, a counterbalance to politically appointed face-fitting, networking, nods and winks monument makers given the privilege passes and the Silver Spoon Arty network, the importance of outsider artists, all this, the psychological counterbalance of the mind to daydream. Where, just where, would the noticed bricks of important buildings be without this cement? So that's just as partly to explain that I'm as influenced by a composer as sort of somebody like Kurt Schwitters, for example. And it's nice to actually sort of jump cross species, as it were, in amongst different forms of art and get inspiration that way. It's almost seeing everything as an artwork, in a sense, and even the McDonald's, you know, I sort of hollowed it out underneath and made it virtually one paper thickness, and that was found on the street, and that belonged to the mother of a friend of mine who looks after our car, and I think his mother, once she was widowed, had a couple of holidays, and I just saw them in his office and grabbed them. And this one's already, that went out of business. The plate, they sold health drinks and things, but that was in Norwich. And I think I was emptying a wallet. I tend to collect clutter and stuff, and when I sort of emptied my wallet and went through it, that was there, so it's already historical. These are historical, these little, you used to draw a ticket in the post office and then wait till your number appeared on an electric light thing, and then you went and got counter service. And they've now got a different system. So I mean, I'm probably the last one to know about how rapidly society changes these days.
But working like this is almost a way of keeping up with that, because everything you can just pick up the sort of day-to-day detritus of your itinerary, so to speak, and incorporate it quite easily.
That it is. It's about being a receptor and not an activist, and not a power merchant who's sort of saying I'm going to build this great work of art and impose it on people. It's almost like receiving little messages, and if you think to the small format of Pepys and yet how close you get to him, and whether you like him or love him or find him a deceiver of his wife and getting his leg over the maidservant, and the wife getting jealous and having to kick that girl out of here, and the way he recorded the Great Fire of London and stuff is just astonishing, and it is the very inside your soul sort of subjective intimacy and even secrets, and it's almost a seeing of everything as potentially being a work of art, you know, rather than just something to do with profit or manufacture.
But having said that, Colin, once you've found and selected your objects, so you're receiving in that sense, but then of course you do superimpose onto them something that is your own.
I remember once on TV I saw, who was the famous English Jewish violinist?
Yehudi Menuhin.
Yes, and who was the beautiful French kind of freeform violinist?
Stéphane Grappelli.
They did a duet together on TV, and it was just amazing, where Yehudi Menuhin was doing this kind of thing, and Stéphane Grappelli was like a butterfly, just sort of, you know, doing that. And it's almost, in a sense, it's nice that it's a kind of duet, in a funny, kind of random way, you know, and it's also a different way of seeing, you know, where you become passive and the messages kind of find you, which I thought was it's quite nice. It doesn't quite make you lazy, but it's almost in a way like it's not that I don't know where to go next, because I always, you know, one of my concepts, as a kid you'd see these Western films at the pictures or the flicks, and there was always the Pony Express in cowboy films, and he was the guy who had holes in his hat. He didn't have a sort of fancy tall hat like the proper cowboys, but he rode a team of sort of like 6 horses, and when he was delivering the express to the next city or town or whatever, if the horse he was riding got tired with his weight, he would literally jump mid-gallop and just carry on with the next one. And in that sense, you know, I'm a sculptor and an etcher and a screen printer and a draftsman and a watercolorist and a ceramic maker and an oil painter and the whole bit, and a collagist. And I find that useful, because sometimes if you have an exhibition, it's an ablution. And I know lots of artists who just really, like, if they were boxers, they have one big fight and then that's it. And I can just switch, you see, like the Pony Express rider, and just literally, you know, just carry on instantly with something else. And I completed 2 sculptures last night, because Jess was at work, and then she came back about 2 or 3 hours later because of that meal, and then somehow in a sort of coldish house with 2 bloody ridiculous cats, I just found that I made myself finish 2 small maquettes, which was good, and it is just nothing to do with anything in this show, which is a nice way to not go stale or stagnant, but just to carry on. But I like this series, I'm kind of almost gagging to keep it going. But what came out of this is the one of French cooking stock cubes, and then and that one of the McDonald's. There are a few, and the toothpaste one, which is almost like an abstract painting. The pieces like that just emerged, they've gone large, kind of like imperial size, And I must have done 50 images, which really, if I hadn't have done this series, then who knows that, you know, those ones germinated the next series that I was doing, which is really exciting. So whatever the reason for this was, you know, it certainly was a potent seed bank, you know, for what's now coming next. And this one is just a pure drawing of the craziest drawing in the world. And yet there was a Parisian jazz, he was an amateur entomologist and he was a jazz musician. And I had a book and it was called In Pursuit of Unknown Species. I've written it backwards, like my child writing used to be. And that's the only one which is a drawing, but it's almost a homage to the French guy who wrote this book.
It's the only one that's purely a drawing.
I think, yes.
You have drawn quite a few elements in many of these.
Yeah.
I mean, even on this Hockney invitation.
Yeah. All the shadows and all the stuff is all just what I've done. I did it in a light moment. And in a sense, everything is art, and it's just nice to ordain it, isn't it? And that's a funny one. I think my only fear in the world seems to be, well, I wouldn't like snakes a lot, but they wouldn't bother me, I don't think, but I wouldn't like the idea of sharks. But the thing that absolutely, almost, I dread it, it's money. And so I did my own sort of bank, you know, and it's just a flower bag. Promised whoever wanted, if they were skint, I'd give them 20 quid for it to get it back, which is exactly what bankers do, isn't it? And that's a Hoover bag, that one. That's just a vacuum cleaner bag. And this one, I think, when I picked these pieces up at Norwich Station, my instant take was, did somebody's lover not turn up? You know, I just got,
and in a fit of fury, they tore them
why
up.
is it torn? I saw it as sadness of a kind. And then in a Pepysian way, that's just when the toilet roll ended, you know, and there's little bits of toilet paper that wouldn't come off the cardboard. So I thought, well, that's a picture of life as well.
But that's one of the few works that actually looks like almost pure abstraction from the most lowly material. But that's...
Yeah, well, it's not meant to be a message. It's not a sort of, you know, a Mickey take at abstraction or anything. But it's, I just coloured in where the tissue was. And I think the last time we went to the fish shop, they gave us a different bag, and I don't know. And the local chip shop is very, very good, and it's been owned for years by a Chinese family, and he's called Eamon, Hong Kong Chinese, and he's been named after Eamon Andrews, and he must be sort of like mid-20s, or, you know, it's just, you could not invent it if you wanted to write a story. And it's just also like the art of fishing is casting a net, and you more, I suppose, one accepts what comes back, and it's a bit like trawling in a sense, you know. That
you don't really have ultimate control over what you'll find and what will come to you. And I think innovation is it can teach you such a lot, you know, if you want to not exactly prostrate yourself, but learn to innovate, or hiding over mistakes or something, and not having nervous breakdowns if you don't answer the question correctly or something. It's just. It's almost like all of life, but in a kind of a microcosm, you know. And he was a late friend of mine, but he's just died. Roger Ackling. His work was so beautiful. He would find sort of driftwood and stuff, and he just burned little marks and patterns on them with a magnifying glass. He was such a lovely guy. But I branded those marks on there because almost nearly it. And so the marks, that was the sort of thing that he did himself.
But with a magnifying glass. But
so
beautiful.
You incorporated a portrait of him with a portrait of his actual art.
The world's worst forgery of his art. And that's a
this
letter.
Is addressed to you, and yes.
Norwich University of the Arts. And so I think I turned it through 90 degrees, and I think I was using silver spray, and I use all sorts of things as palettes for wet silver spray, and if I'm painting, and then I think I just started doodling on it, you know, and it was, I mean, is that a factory chimney? Is that pollution? Or I just don't have a clue, but I made, in almost like my dad, you know, like they're just simply twos. That's a 20, that's a 22, that's a number 3, and that's a number 4 upside down. So I made a little Norfolk Broadland scene, you see, with the sunset and the swan. You can see the upside down number 4, and so I turned it into a windmill, which... So it's just how I work. It's almost like my dad in the pub, you know, if someone calls out the title of a song and he would do it. It's meant to be something slightly earthy about it, you know.
Colin, the work that references Gavin Turk, what's that about?
I knew Gavin Turk and I knew Mark Quinn a little bit, you know. I kind of admire them and I think they seem to like me and stuff. I think he had a book done, or an art book or something, but the cover was literally Gavin with his eyes closed, and that's a sketch that a young artist did that Gavin knows, and so when I didn't respond to it or thank Gavin or anything, but and this was just literally the orange and the square with Gavin Turk with his eyes closed. I just drew eyes on him, you see, and I put a scar on his face and a sort of funny moustache, and I think I just put, you know, reward wanted. I wasn't going to put a price on his head, or I didn't want him dead, so I just put wanted alive Gavin Turk, but it's just how it came out, you know, so it plopped through the letterbox, and I thought, well, you know, and that was for a model aeroplane, I think, of a MiG. In the Korean War, it was the MiG-15, so it might be the MiG-19 or 20 by that, my limited knowledge of aeroplanes. And then there's a lady friend of ours who's on the surface seems quite eccentric in many ways and ran a whole medieval church as an art centre for several years. Once in a while she'd come round ours and she just gave us some French stock cubes. So I did it in that kind of way. Just random. I didn't go too deep into her face at all, but all the rest is just paint. And I like my writing, you see, like pretend French writing. And now I'm going to do that next. I've bought some of these awful sugar puffy Monster Munch things with a funny monster, and I'm going to do this style exactly, but it'll be an opened up sort of cereal box, you know. So that's almost like the seed that I've got something from, you know.